You'd never make fun of someone for having a physical illness, but people make all kinds of offhand remarks about people having mental illnesses and never give it a second thought. How often have you heard a person say that someone's psycho, or schizo, or bipolar, or OCD? I can guarantee that the people who used those terms had no idea what they actually meant.
Yes, true, and that's exactly why we are here today. We have come together to raise awareness about mental illness, debunk myths, and learn how to deal with certain mental illnesses.
Some of the most common disorders have their root in an unpleasant mental state that's familiar to all of us: anxiety.
It's a part of being human, but for some people it can develop into intense fear and paralyzing dread, and ultimately turn into full-fledged anxiety disorder. Defining psychological disorders again, a distressful and dysfunctional pattern of thoughts, feelings, or behaviors that interferes with the ability to function in a healthy way.
So, when it comes to anxiety, that definition is the difference between the girl who's teased by her friends as being OCD because she does her laundry every night and has a clean room, and the girl who has to wash her hands so often that they bleed. Starting today, you're going to understand all those terms that you've been using.
So I want to start out with a condition that used to be characterized as an anxiety disorder, but is now considered complex enough to be in a class all by itself: obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. You probably know that condition is characterized by unwanted repetitive thoughts which become obsessions, which are sometimes accompanied by actions which become compulsions. And it is a great example of a psychological disorder that could use some mental health myth busting. Being neat and orderly does not mean you have OCD. There are compulsions and often even ritualistic behaviors to relieve intense and unbearable anxiety. Soon, the people diagnosed with OCD are washing their hands every 5 minutes, or constantly checking the stove, or counting the exact number of steps they take everywhere they go. It's hard to keep a job, run a household, or do much of anything if you feel intensely compelled to run to the kitchen 20 times an hour. But the key here is that OCD is not a description for your roommate who cleans her room every twice a week, or the guy you know who only likes to use green felt tip pens. OCD isn't an adjective, and people shouldn't diminish the disorder by saying that they feel OCD. Psychological disorders make a person suffering feel deviant, distressful, and dysfunctional, and it's really sad that some people act like they have these mental disorders. We live in a world where anxiety and depression have now been romanticized into an aesthetic, and that's just sad. So please do not use these as an insult. Those words can be harmful and in many ways triggering for those who actually deal with these.
That was really good, Samrin. That was really informative.
Teens and adults often use this term and have absolutely no clue of what it means. This often takes place for bipolar disorder as well. People actually characterize having mood swings as being bipolar even though they aren't the same. So now I'll tell you what bipolar disorder actually means. It is a type of mental disorder and it's also known as manic depression. In this, people experience periods of extreme lows known as depression as well as periods of extreme highs or manic episodes. Some of the symptoms for bipolar disorder would be not sleeping for days, long periods of euphoria, racing thoughts, mania, and depression. I'll give you an example of a girl named Jamison who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She experienced a tremendously inflated sense of self-esteem and did impulsive things that felt good at that time but had painful consequences, like going on lavish shopping sprees, racking up credit card debt, and emptying her bank accounts. But these episodes were followed by emotional crashes, crippling bouts of depression that sent her into a suicidal spiral. But thankfully, she emerged from it determined to find help through medication and therapy.
Thanks, Sakina. That was great information. And now Sithumdi will give us an insight on anxiety and panic disorders.
So, anxiety is a normal emotion. It's your body's way of responding to stress and alerting you of potential danger, and it's also known as a fear of apprehension about what's to come. So, everyone feels anxious now and then. For example, you may feel anxious or nervous before taking a test or making an important decision, or even before recitation. But occasional anxiety is okay, it's normal. Anxiety disorders are different and can result in significant worry about issues such as treatment and your future. And it's a stress buildup, really. There are a group of mental illnesses that cause constant and overwhelming anxiety and fear. Generalized anxiety disorder. You feel excessive and irrational worry about future events. Social anxiety disorder is also known as social phobia, and it's when you feel overwhelming worry or self consciousness about everyday social situations, and this kind of prevents you from socializing. We have separation anxiety. Now, a lot of people say that little kids and pets often feel separation anxiety, and when adults or teenagers experience it, they are insulted for it, they are teased for it. But anyone can get separation anxiety disorder. And if you do, you'll feel extremely anxious or fearful when a person that you're close to leaves your sight. And you'll always worry that something bad may happen to the loved one or you. Now, finally, we have panic disorder. Panic disorder is also known as a panic attack. So you feel a sudden, intense fear that brings on the attack. And during the panic attack, you break out in sweat, you have chest pain, and you have pounding heartbeat. And a lot of people that have panic disorder compare it to a cardiac arrest, and they say that they feel like they're dying. Like I said before, occasional anxiety is okay. However, some anxiety disorders are triggered by specific things. Now, to end this session, we have Dr. Saima, who is here with us to help us understand more about dealing with certain mental issues and looking at things from a much more medical perspective.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Saima Wasti, a neurooccupational therapist and an NLP coach, and also founder and director of Kikstartz Rehabilitation LLP. Today I'm going to talk about a very interesting concept or an interesting topic, and that's mental health. And a positive thing is that in the last few years we have a lot of discussions happening around it, and that's a welcome note to it. Because society has faced a lot of trauma whenever any discussion has been around mental health issues, irrespective of what background it is coming from. But today I'm going to talk about or highlight on three concepts. One, how does our brain exactly function and how do these illnesses come to surface? Two, what should be the management or how do we go about their treatment? And third, as a society, what role do we play? So our brain, it's a very beautiful, complex, supreme structure. Now therapy doesn't count only to counseling, okay? So definitely counseling and discussing your problems and talking about it makes a huge difference, but counseling is just not talking. There is an approach that is done on how we are managing, creating that safe and a secure space for a person. Also, as an occupational therapist, there is a lot of focus on engaging in meaningful and purposeful activities. Now, what is meaningful activities? The activities that gives you happiness. If you are a writer and you think that writing will help you liberate your emotions, that's a meaningful activity for you, and that is a healthy coping strategies. So as an occupational therapist, we would start working upon developing healthy coping strategies for you. So even if there is stressor coming in, you can still manage, and that makes you grow more stronger. So therapy and medical management go in hand, and it is very important to reach for them in time. If you observe that there is somebody around you who is showing certain clinical signs like disinterest in his life or persistent feeling of lowness, loss of energy, difficulty in concentrating, making a lot of errors than usual, and getting irritable, angry, anxious. There are a lot of changes that are happening persistently for more than 2 weeks, or even if 2 weeks, it's an alarming sign that you should reach out to a consultant or to a doctor and get yourself screened. Just like you get yourself screened for any kind of physical illnesses, you get yourself screened for any kind of risk of any kind of developing mental illnesses. Now, to sum it up, as a society, we have a huge role to play, and that role is being a mental health warrior. Being very vigilant about people around us. It's not just about talking, okay? It's about identifying. Is any person around you suicidal? Is any person around you going through rough phase? And understanding what you have to talk to them, because a lot of times a lot more harm is done by just talking than silence. What I mean to say is, if you are not conversing in the right way, or you're not choosing the right words with a person who is already going through a low phase, you can do a lot of damage. Thumb rule: never make a person feel guilty if they are in depression or if they are feeling depressed. Okay, never give them blame or never rationalize for them. Give a piece of your ear, listen, give a piece of your time and listen to them. But don't just start snapping up solutions. Ye karo, do this, do this, do this. No, that doesn't work. You have to be patient. You should know what you have to say, and you make them feel secured. And most important, reach out for a professional help. Your one step can make a huge difference, and this can help in breaking that taboo and stigma around reaching out for professional help. With this, I hope this information was useful to you all. If there are any concerns regarding the same, you all can reach out to me as well, or anyone who is professional around you. Thank you.